So we just got back from Italy and it was an amazing trip. If you've never thought about visiting Italy, it's a beautiful place for so many reasons. One of them is that you can be there for years and years and never see all the stuff that's there because they have so much history and it's a pretty big country. So I wanted to show you or tell you some of the stuff that we did that I think is absolutely musts while you're there. You can do some other stuff, explore off the path, but these are my favorites. So the first must is obvious. Vatican City, everybody wants to go see it, and it will be pretty obvious by the lines that it is something that everybody who's visiting wants to go see. But you can get around that in a couple ways. The first is skip the line tickets. I absolutely would recommend doing skip the line for everything at Vatican City because otherwise you will be kind of wasting your time. For me, it's a little bit more money, but it's kind of worth it. I think we spent 30 bucks on our Get Your Guide tickets, which is the brand that we used for our skip the line, and all we had to do was show up and they ushered us in and we were right into the Vatican museums. Whereas I think getting into the Vatican is about 10 bucks, so that'll kind of tell you the difference in price. But when we showed up, there was a line all the way around the city. So I heard it's 4 to 8 hours to get in if you don't have skip the line tickets. So definitely make sure that is something you do when you go visit the city, Vatican City. And then there's a couple different areas you'll want to visit. The Vatican Museums is the first and most obvious. And for me, I'm not really the type of person that likes to go to museums while I'm on a trip because I like to explore the culture and the city and just walk around and see things. If I had known it was really just a huge museum, I'm not sure I would have done it, except for it was pretty amazing. They have stuff from all over the world, some of the best antiquities from all over the world. That's the first reason you'll want to see Vatican museums. However, the second reason is that unless you're with a private group or some sort of special tour, you will not be able to get into Sistine Chapel without first going through Vatican museums. So make sure you get your tickets to that, go in. At the end of that will be the Sistine Chapel, which is something obviously if you go all the way to Rome, you will definitely want to see. So then that's just the first part of Vatican City. You'll get out of the Sistine Chapel, you'll end up in a cafe, you can have lunch or not, it's up to you. And then when we got done, I was like, well, I feel like there's something else. And oh yeah, St. Peter's Basilica is kind of an important part of Vatican City. So you will actually have to have separate tickets for that. That's in St. Peter's Square, which you can go without tickets. You can explore the square. But if you want to get into St. Peter's Basilica, you will need tickets. You can buy separate skip the line tickets for that. And that line is a little bit shorter. When we were there, it was about an hour instead of 4 to 8 hours, but it's still time. And if you are trying to do a whole bunch in one day, then you'll definitely want to do skip the line tickets. So when you get into St. Peter's Basilica, it's beautiful. It's, one of the most beautiful churches in the world. And that will take you, I don't know, up to an hour. It probably won't take you longer than an hour to go through St. Peter's Basilica. However, the one thing that not everybody knows to do that you definitely want to do while you're there is you can actually climb to the top of the dome at St. Peter's Basilica. You can do that in a couple different ways. First one is you can actually take an elevator up, and those tickets are going to be, I believe we paid $4 for those tickets, so they're not super expensive. That will take you to the bottom of the dome. You can also climb up to the bottom of the dome. There's stairs, that's completely free. You don't have to wait in line, you don't have to do anything, you just climb up. And so either way, you're going to get to the bottom of the dome, and then you will have to climb the rest of the way either way. So, and it's not an easy climb. The stairs are small, it gets really claustrophobic, they're very steep, there's a lot of people doing it at the same time. So just be aware of that. But once you get to the top, it's one of the best views of Rome. It's one of the best views of Vatican City, and you will definitely want to do it either way. So on your way down, you can take the elevator, but I would suggest actually climbing down because there's a beautiful, beautiful staircase that you will walk down, and it's one of the best photos, Instagrammable photos, right, in Rome. So that's something you'll definitely want to do. Another thing that you can do in Vatican City that not a lot of people know about and not a lot of people are allowed to do is you can actually take a tour beneath St. Peter's Basilica, which is absolutely amazing. We were on this tour, and there's actually a clear piece of glass in the center of St. Peter's Basilica, and we looked up and there was a child looking down waving at us. But actually what it is, it's a walk through the old streets of Rome around the time that Christianity began, and St. Peter is said to be buried under there as well. So it's kind of looking through St. Peter's tomb. You can see the little spot where they say his bones are. And then, but the reason not many people can do it, it's a very small space. You have to sign up for a tour to do it. About 250 people do it a day. On our tour, I think there was up to 10 people. You can do it in different languages as well. But what you have to do is you have to actually, there's a certain website, you have to sign up for tickets, and they're not super expensive. I think they're $6 or $7 for the tour. But then you actually have to write them a couple months in advance, say these are the dates we'll be there, and they'll write you back and say, well, these are the dates that we can accommodate you, or we can't, we're full those days. And so for me, I wrote them and said, I have this day, this is when I want to do it, and they said we can't do that, but we can do the next day. And so I kind of had to shift my schedule around, but I did it because it was completely amazing. The tour guide will walk you through and you'll see the old streets of Rome. The one downside of this tour is that you will actually not be able to take pictures of any kind. No video, no cameras, no cell phones, nothing. And that's kind of disappointing because you do kind of want to share that kind of stuff, but you definitely want to abide by that. So you'll come out and you'll be in where all the old popes are buried, and then yeah, go along your day. That was an amazing part of the trip, so definitely consider doing that. Rome is full of so many beautiful, amazing things that it's hard to kind of know exactly what to do. So I just wanted to share a couple other kind of off the beaten path things you may not think about, but you should absolutely do. One of them is the Castle San Angelo, and you'll see it as you're leaving Vatican City. It's right next to the bridge going back into Rome, and it is beautiful, it's historic, but what's the big deal, right? Rome, Italy itself is full of castles, it's full of old things. The reason you need to go to Castle San Angelo is because, in my opinion, it is absolutely the best view of Rome when you get to the top. So you can actually, you go through the history. It was built by an old emperor as his tomb, actually, and he eventually turned into a fortress. But when you get to almost to the top, the story right before the top, there's actually a cafe there. You can stop, you can have a beer, you can relax, and you're looking onto Vatican City with your beer or wine or whatever you choose to have. And that was just one of my favorite parts of Italy itself. It was just absolutely amazing. But then you get all the way to the top, and it's actually a 360 degree of Rome. And so if you want the best view of Rome, obviously Vatican City, the top of the dome, has an amazing one, but this one's also pretty amazing. So make sure you do that as well. The other thing I would suggest, which I didn't even think about, the person I was with said, oh my gosh, we have to do this, and it actually ended up being my favorite part of the whole trip, was to visit the Via Appia Antica. I think that's how you say it. And it is actually, when they say all roads lead to Rome, that is one of the roads. It's one of the oldest roads, existing used roads in the world. People still live off the side of the road. And you can actually take a bus from city center to get to Via Appia, and then it's the Appian Way also, if you know it by that. You can actually walk miles and miles down this road, or you can actually rent a bike and bike down the road. We didn't bike it because it was a little bit rough. It's definitely big stones. And I just would rather walk it. So we actually ended up walking about 4 miles up the road and then just took an Uber back to town. And it was so historic. There's different monuments on the side of the road. There's different things that you can see from thousands and thousands of years ago. So definitely make sure you visit Via Appia while you are in Rome. So one of the other things I would suggest, and this isn't exactly a place or anything, but take the train. While you're in Rome, there's different places you'll want to visit. You'll want to go south, you'll want to go north. There's Venice, there's Florence, there's Cinque Terre, there's a whole bunch of, the Amalfi Coast, a lot of people do that. Take the train. The train is clean, it's not that expensive. It is really just a nice option to have in the city. I wish we had more trains in the United States, because we rented a car one time while we were in Italy, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, but everything else was done by train because it was super simple, it wasn't expensive, and it was just easy. And I've heard that the roads in Italy are not incredibly easy to drive on, especially if you're driving all the way across the country. Not because the roads are bad, but because there's just different rules and stuff that you may not know. So taking a train, it's a fun experience, and you can definitely take it all over the country. So I know this is an obvious one, but Venice, while you're there, is something you just have to do, right? I was there, it was super touristy. It was a beautiful, beautiful city, and it's not big. I mean, it's an island, or at least the main tourist part is an island, and you can walk around it, and I mean, in a couple days you could probably explore all of it. We just decided to spend one day there because we knew it was a small island, and we just walked for hours and hours and hours, and it was amazing. I will tell you that one day we were there, I probably didn't need to spend more time there. I think at the time it was like, okay, we've kind of explored everything. So definitely make sure that you go to Venice though, because it's, you know, you just have to do it. There are other islands that you can explore, which if you're there for more than one day, I would definitely suggest that. My big thing was I wanted to visit the Indiana Jones Church, which is in the Last Crusade. It was the one, it was actually a library in the movie, but it's actually a church. You can go find that. So I'll leave some instructions on where to find that. But there's not really anything to do in Venice besides, I mean, there's no, you want to go to St. Mark's Square, you want to see the Basilica, but besides that, there's not, most cities are, we have to go do this, 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 and this, but Venice is a nice, you can just relax. You can take a gondola ride if you want, although those are super expensive and a little touristy as well, but Instagrammable, obviously. But yeah, just do it, because you can say you did it and then you don't really need to do it again, I don't think. But yeah, Venice is a pretty amazing place to go. So Florence is the second obvious city that you need to go visit. I've heard so many people say of all the cities in Italy, it's their absolute favorite. And I would agree, it's a pretty big city, a lot bigger than Venice. We did the obvious tourist stuff. We only spent 2 days there. Went and saw David, things like that. The one thing I will tell you, and I learned this from Rick Steves, and it was probably the best piece of advice I got from Rick Steves for my Italy trip, is that if you want to climb the dome, it's Il Duomo in Florence, you need to reserve your tickets in advance because they fill up really, really fast. And I was so thankful I got that advice, because we got there and it said we don't have any tours available, but we had our tickets for the tour. So it's not a tour, they let you in basically. And one thing about Italy is you will be climbing a lot. There's a lot of stairs to climb, there's a lot of domes, there's a lot of towers, and so I definitely got back in shape while I was in Italy. There are a lot of stairs though, but climbing the dome is something not that many people can do. I think they let 10 or 20 in an hour, and it is a pretty amazing experience. You're all the way at the top of Florence, basically. You can see everything, and again, not many people can do it, so it's a pretty exciting experience. I'm going to leave instructions below on kind of how you can reserve your tickets for that to make sure that you get into the dome while you are in Florence. So we also took a road trip to Pisa, which I know is kind of touristy and a lot of people say, I don't know if I want to do it or not, but you know, it's one of those things you kind of have to do. So for us, I decided that was the one day we were going to rent a car because it's only about an hour, hour and a half from Florence, and the train, I wanted to be a little bit more in control than taking a train. So we rented a car. It was super easy in Florence. I think we did it through Avis, and we drove to Pisa, and the instructions were easy. We got right there. We parked probably a block away from the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which was really nice. I wasn't sure where parking would be. There's just a bunch of little parking lots near it, and so you really don't have to walk too far or anything. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is part of a larger complex that's actually, there's a church, there's a whole bunch of different stuff, so you could spend some time really going through all of it. For us, we had seen so many churches, so we just decided we're going to climb to the top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which again, more stairs, right? But it was pretty amazing. It was really cool to say you were there, and while you're in it, you feel yourself leaning over, which is also pretty amazing. So from there, we really didn't have any plans. We decided just to go back to Florence and kind of explore a little bit more, but because I have terrible directions, even when I have Google Maps right in front of me, we ended up missing our exit. And so we ended up going south and just decided to kind of wing it and go for it. So we started driving through Tuscany, and I would tell you, that is an amazing experience. It's definitely something you should do, is just take a car, go off through Tuscany and kind of see what you can find. We ended up in a couple beautiful towns. One was called Volterra, which is basically an old fortress on the top of this hill. And we didn't spend time there, but if we had, if I were to go back, I would spend a lot more time there because that was an amazing, amazing city. We also ended up in Siena, which is another place that you should definitely visit. So there's so much stuff in Tuscany that if you just rent a car and go, it's totally worth it. So one of the most amazing parts of our trip, which was kind of a last minute thing, I hadn't even really thought about it until a couple days before our trip, but was going to Pompeii. And this was life-changing to me. I have to tell you that going through this city was it hits you the history of this country and everything that's happened in the last couple thousand years or longer. I mean, they have been around for a lot longer than a lot of cultures, and it's pretty mind-blowing. So what we did is you take a train, you take the main big train, Train Italia, down to Naples, but then you have to take the local train all the way to Pompeii. And I will tell you, it's about another hour on the train, and it's a subway. You will probably be standing that entire hour. It's a little bit exhausting, but totally worth it. So it'll actually drop you off right in front of the gate of Pompeii where you buy your tickets. This was one of the things, I didn't buy tickets in advance, and we went up to the door and bought tickets. You really don't need skip the line passes or anything for Pompeii. So one of the suggestions I have is that there's going to be a visitor center right at the beginning. Do not skip that. Go through the visitor center, and the reason for that is because they have a little video on the history, which, you know, you can watch in advance if you want. It's totally fine. But they actually have a large map of the city, and you kind of realize how large the city was and how many people lived here when the Mount Vesuvius erupted. So see that first. You'll kind of see where everything is. There's a theater, there's a coliseum, all that kind of stuff, and then you'll kind of get your bearings, and that's really important as you're walking through the streets of Pompeii. So then you can kind of just go off and explore. I mean, you could spend a week walking through Pompeii. It is really that big. There's so many different side streets, and you see apartments, you see the city square, you can see the Colosseum, you can see the theater. There's going to be a lot of people there, but not too many where it's kind of obstructive, right? You will be able to wander off on your own and not see people for minutes or even an hour if you kind of go off into the secluded areas. So, but just make sure you do it because it is amazing. And so that was just the first part of our day in Pompeii. The second part was also really, really amazing. Most people don't know, but you can actually hike Mount Vesuvius, which was so interesting for so many reasons. First of all, you take a bus. People will try to sell you private tours, and that's up to you. If you want to take a private tour up there, that's fine. But there is a bus, and it is, I believe it was about $3, €3 maybe. You get on this bus, they take you up to Vesuvius. Expect it to take about an hour to get up there because it's not that close, and you have to drive through the streets of Naples. You have to take this windy, terrifying ride up this mountain. It's basically switchbacks on this giant bus where two buses crossing barely fit. So that was a little bit tough for me. But you get up there, you're not all the way to the top of the mountain. You have about another mile to go to hike, and the hike is, a lot of people say, oh, it's a breeze, but it wasn't the easiest thing in the world. But I did see people up there with canes. I saw elderly people, I saw children. So it is something that you can do if you really want to do it. So we walked up there, and at the top you can see the caldera, you can see all of Naples. It was beautiful. And then you can actually, there's like a little cafe up there. We bought some wine up there because, hey, we bought some wine at the top of Vesuvius. That's pretty cool, right? That, I think, total took 3 or 4 hours. The bus took an hour there, an hour back, and then the hike up and the hike back down. We had a little bit of a time limit because we took the very first train out of Rome in the morning, and then we needed to catch the very last train at night, and it was a little bit tight going through Pompeii and then going to Vesuvius. So just know that if I did it again in the future, I probably would have stayed in Naples overnight and then taken the train in the morning, just because we wouldn't have had to worry so much. But that is something you absolutely should do. It was an amazing experience, and I would do it again in a second. Even though I don't love going to the same place twice because it feels like the world's so big, you want to do so much, but I would go back to Pompeii in a second. It was amazing and beautiful, and absolutely the best part of our trip. So one of the tips I have for visiting Italy, a mistake I made, there's so much in Italy, so many historical things, so many things you want to do. I filled our schedule up completely. We had no time to rest. We were going, and my boyfriend even said that it didn't quite feel like a vacation because I always said we had to go here now, and that's kind of one of the downfalls of skip the line tickets, is you have to do it when you say you're going to do it. So that is something that I would maybe change next time, but at the same time, it's Italy, and if you want to relax on vacation, you can go to a beach, but this is something where there's so much history, and so kind of find that balance where what you want to do there and how much time you have. We had 10 days in Italy total, and I would probably spend 2 or 3 weeks next time and do the same amount of things, and so it wouldn't feel like so stressful all the time. It was amazing. I absolutely would recommend it for your next vacation. And don't forget to comment below. Let me know if you have any other tips on Italy, or if you're planning on going there and need suggestions or anything like that. And don't forget to subscribe below as well. We will see you next time.